Think fast, Chuckle Nuts!
Hello and welcome to the Colorverse timeline. Now, as you may have figured out by the title, this is going to be just a rundown of all of the events that we know of, and some that are only theorized, all laid out in a chronological timeline. And so, let us begin drawing the timeline. There it is. Isn't that beautiful? Now, I'm going to start off just here. And this, I want to clarify straight away, this is not the beginning of the universe, this is just the beginning of known recorded history. So this will be the birth of Lyrian, the planet Lyrian. Now, I say birth because that's how it's referred to in the canon. They say Lyrian was born, and then immediately after that, we have the birth of the gods, with Nixian being born first. That's the only one that's specified in order, and the rest were born in, I guess, an order that doesn't matter. Maybe they were all born at the same time, and Nixian was the only one that was born out of synchronization with the rest. I don't know, but that's all we know is Lyrian was born, then the gods were born, with Nixian being the first one. And then we have a sort of an era of peacetime. We don't know how long it lasted. I'm going to guess maybe hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. So I'm just going to leave a little gap here. And then we have the Feather of Rayum arriving, or the Splinter of Rayum arriving, whatever it's like actually supposed to be called. Again, I've said this in a lore video before. I'm in the habit of calling it a feather from like testing periods. But anyway, the feather arrives, and then we have the War of Glass. Now, again, we don't know how long this lasted for, so any gaps that I leave in this timeline are pretty much completely arbitrary. This is just supposed to show the order of events, not necessarily how long each event lasted, at least until we get to the modern present quote-unquote events. Then we actually do know how long things lasted. And anyway, we have the War of Glass, which lasts however long, and after the War of Glass, Armadell leaves and creates Ladamra and creates the scales. In fact, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna put that here. We're gonna have all Lyrian stuff up here and all Ladamra stuff down here. See if that's interesting to do. And again, we have now a period of peacetime, and so, but obviously that doesn't last long. And we have the War of the Scales. And again, don't know how long that lasted, so I'm just going to put another little blip here. The War of the Scales ends, and Colorgrave gets banished to the Colorless Void, and Armadell leaves the planet. And that pretty much covers. I'm just going to put a nice little divider here. Maybe not there. Maybe more like here. That pretty much covers all of the ancient history events, at least that we know of. That is everything that happened in. Not pre-recorded history, because it's recorded, we know about it, so it's recorded. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Point is, that's sort of an era that is very separated from modern events, which we are now going to get to now. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to thank you for that. Fucking cat just jumped up on the desk again. I'm going to preemptively put a divider here, and this will be for future events that we have not explored yet, so we'll get to that. But for now, let's focus on the present. So let's start off with again, this little gap here doesn't necessarily mean that this actually happened shortly after. I think it's theorized that there's a gap of thousands of years. If not, then it's definitely hundreds of years. But anyway, we have here Prodigal. Prodigal happens. In fact, no, sorry, I'm just looking over at my notes. No, this is not Prodigal. This is 10 years before Prodigal. 10 years before, because this is a specific event that we know of. 10 years before the events of the Prodigal game happens, Auron runs away from home, and then he comes back 10 years later, and then we have the events of Prodigal. And then 10 years again after Prodigal, we have Cursecrackers. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna space these out a little more. You have that. There's Prodigal. There's Prodigal, and then there's Cursecrackers. Right, so there's Cursecrackers, and 1 year after Cursecrackers, we get Claire Alamode, which has only just come out. And now, I just want to skip back a little bit and say that this is not confirmed, but it is theorized and highly likely that Howling Crown will take place. I want to place this just after the halfway mark between these two. Howling Crown takes place 6 years after Prodigal, meaning 4 years before Cursecrackers, because of something that is said in Cursecrackers itself, with, I think it's between Bell and Aura, one of the fortunes or something like that. I'll put a screenshot on the screen. This is this conversation here, right? It says that, 4 years ago, another crown bearer appeared, and my theory is that the crown bearer is referring to a god, and that god being possibly River. Whether she actually becomes a god or if she like bears the crown of a god like Auron does, like Auron bears the crown of Veridus. He doesn't actually become Veridus, but he kind of becomes one with him. I feel like there's going to be something similar there, and it's probably also, a side note, it's probably going to be Ivaris, the god of ice, because it's, you know, it's Howling Crown, it takes place in the frontier, it's all ice and stuff. Cat's coming back, hello! But anyway, I just want to make it clear that this is theorized only, but highly likely, which is why I'm putting it on the timeline in the first place. And speaking of things that are only theorized, very recently we had the reveal of Dawn Thief, and I think this takes place immediately after Clear Alamode. If not, maybe even like some of the early events happening in tandem with Clear Alamode. Don't know yet, we will find out, but that's what I think. And again, this is only theorized. And the final present event, like I'm saying present with air quotes around it. You can probably hear me saying it like that, present, because obviously this is taking place over like a 15-year period, so they're not obviously all happening presently, like simultaneously, but they are the present events for us, the players. And like I say, it's a 15-year span because we now have Veritas, which happens 15 years after Prodigal. I guess if you include this, it's 25 years, but whatever. So yes, Veritas takes place 15 years after Prodigal, which of course means it's 9 years after Howling Crown, 5 years after Curse Crackers, and 4 years after Clear Alamode. And again, presumably 4 years after Dawn Thief. And that does it for the present events, but now we do have some future events that we know of. For example, you know what? I'm gonna move this to be over here and give myself a little more space to work with this just here. So let's just expand that, and there we go. We have something that is confirmed to be over 20 years post-Prodigal. Now, over 20 years, I don't know if that means it's like 29 years, but I guess if that was the case, it would probably say almost 30 years. Over 20 years, I'm assuming it means like maybe 21, 22 years, or 20 years and 3 months or something like that. We have Siska and Kirhasa joining the Rising Hero, who we now know to be Luanrel, who we also now know to be Torren, who we also now know is working with Revulon, or for Revulon even, recruiting those two into her like elite squad of people who are going to fight against the Seer, which is also some future event. Now, we don't know when the war against the Seer happens. We can assume by the wording that it is happening currently at this point here. So just generally around this area, we'll say that the war against the Seer is happening. There's also possibly Xenocite Clad is happening around this time. Now, Xenocite Clad is weird because it seems, from every bit of footage that we have, it seems extremely futuristic, right? But Luanrel is in it, who is alive now, just 20 years post-Prodigal. And so, like, in the most extreme case of a human lifespan, this is like maybe at the extreme most, like not even realistic, 100 years after Prodigal, right? Do we really think technology's advanced that much? I feel like there's something we don't know in terms of how technology works. I do have another theory video cooking, which might be really weird and left field as a theory. I'm not going to say what it is exactly because I don't want to go off on a tangent for 20 minutes. And also, I might not make it for like another few months yet. Who knows? I don't know. You know what I'm like. Come on, you know what I'm like. But it's just this connection of having Luanrel in Xenocite Clad and also in Veridus, and in this 20 years post-Prodigal period, putting this army together. It's like, when does Xenocite Clad take place? So I've got to assume Xenocite Clad takes place like, I don't know, somewhere around here. Somewhere around here is Xenocite Clad. I'm going to get rid of that because it looks ugly. I don't know. But then, also, we do have one more event, and I'm going to put this right on the end. Again, this does not signify the end of the universe, just the end of known recorded history that we have, and also, technically, It's not canon, but I always like to talk about them whenever I have the excuse to, and it is the Shadow of Ricost trilogy of 2 books. Just a reminder, these are the books that take place on Haven in, like, basically a bad timeline where Rayam came to Lyrian and wiped out life and the gods all fled to Haven. And they reduced themselves down to these crystalline forms, and so they have people who, like, take possession of the crystals and they become these people called saints. I'm getting too into it. I'm getting too into the description of the lore of these books. I'll make another video on those eventually. That's definitely not planned to be anytime soon, by the way. So when I say that one, that is far off in the future. That may be years from now that I make a video on the Shadow of Ricost books. But anyway, Mimbron wrote these books when he was a teenager. They do technically take place in this universe, but because they were written so long ago and there is now more established lore in this universe, they have been written off as not canon. They may become canon again in the future, or there may be future events that are similar or mirror these events in the books, but these versions of events that are in these books are not themselves canon anymore. But again, since they are technically part of the same universe, I wanted to mention them, and I also like mentioning them whenever I can. But anyway, that's going to do it, except for one last thing. Now, maybe you've been thinking this, maybe you completely forgot until I'm about to say it just now and you'll remember and you still haven't thought of it. Maybe have you thought of it? Have you? I'm gonna say it. April Grove. I haven't put April Grove on this timeline because we have no idea where the hell or when the hell April Grove takes place. We just have no clue whatsoever. So, I just don't know where to put it. I have no idea where to put it. That's the only outlier. That's the only thing that stands out from all of this, is that April Grove, fucking who knows. Now, I did have that theory that this knight fella is maybe, what's his fucking name? Clyde? The most beloved character, can't even remember his name. But I theorized that this might be Clyde, but even if it's not Clyde, he still clearly comes from Ladamra. So this would have to take place in the modern era, or maybe in the future era. It can't take place in here, at least, because it has to be sometime after Ladamra was established. So I guess it could happen in this little section here. But it would have to most likely happen during this period, I would say, in the modern era. Probably not even in the future era. I assume it's going to have some connection with the Dawn, because they are currently messing around with cross-world teleportation, or they're messing around with teleportation in general, I should say. So who knows? It might not come up. You know what? April Grove might be just a complete outlier forever. It might never have any connections. I mean, there's that whole thing with the glyphs in the cave, but that might just be some sort of meta narrative adventure thing with Cool King Tom. It might not actually be important to the overall narrative of the whole universe. We will have to wait to find out and see, because if you don't know, there is an update planned for April Grove, like a pretty big one, so we may get some more stuff with that. We may not. It may just forever be a mystery, because it's not, if it's not important, then it's not important, you know what I mean? But that will do it for now. I feel like I've kind of squished everything up on the left-hand side here. I kind of felt like that was going to happen because I was afraid of running out of space, and so I ended up giving myself not enough space at the beginning. But whatever, it's fine. It looks fine. That's the timeline of the Colorverse, everyone. So any further questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will endeavor to answer them as best to my ability as I can. And next time, I may do something a little more beginner-friendly. I may do something that explains the connections between these worlds on a more surface level, because I do want this channel to be like a repository for all lore, not just all the deep stuff that you have to be really involved to know about. I want this to be a place that people can come to get things explained to them, even the most basic things. So I think I'm going to do that next. I think I'm going to make a video saying, hey, this is how these worlds are connected, how the stories connect, just in case you missed any of it, or just in case you haven't played one of the games in particular, like maybe Zelda-likes aren't your thing, maybe platformers aren't your thing, but you still want to get all of the story connections that you can. That's perfectly fine. So I think we're going to do that next. Look forward to that eventually. Goodbye.